We're talking to Aaron Bedra. He's based in Raleigh, and he has a company called Relevance. Could you tell us a little bit about what your company does?
So Relevance is a software consultancy started in 2003 by Stuart Halloway and Justin Gatland. It is a full-service software shop. Ruby, Clojure, and actually all kinds of different languages. But basically a custom app software consultancy.
So speaking of scripting languages, this has been your focus for the last couple of years, is trying to sort of tell people what the differences are between different languages. Is that true?
Yeah.
And on Wednesday, you're going to host something called the Script Bowl?
Yeah, participating in the Script Bowl. It'll be Clojure, JRuby, Scala, and Groovy. And basically, it's a demonstration of the language's powers. It's kind of a pseudo competition, if you will, audience vote at the end, and just kind of each language shows off its really compelling features and talks about its community to let people kind of know where things are at and how the languages are progressing.
So what is the top 4 or the top 5? And I know it's not like we're trying to turn this into a horse race, but what are the 4 or 5 languages that you're paying attention to right now?
So I obviously have a bias towards Clojure, working on the core language team. So Clojure is definitely at the forefront of everything for me. I work with Ruby quite a bit at Relevance as well. I think Ruby is a great language to use, very strong, a great momentum right now. The Ruby on Rails web framework makes a lot of things really nice, really easy to build apps, actually. I think there are some workhorses, some stable stuff like Java and C# that are really supporting a lot. But I think there's also some other runners like F# and Haskell and Scala that are really paving different ways, different ideas. And I mean, I really don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. I know who's gonna kind of edge who out. But I think each language has its own kind of niche that really compels people towards it. But in the end, they're all general purpose programming languages, so you can solve any problem with them.
If you were a new programmer, what would you choose?
That's a really good question. It depends, I think, on the definition of new programmer. Is it a new programmer in its computer science background, a new programmer just picking up programming for the first time? I guess there's definitely some...
Let's say I'm in school and I'm majoring in computer science and I want to get into programming.
So I am absolutely on board with the old MIT philosophy of scheme first. Scheme at Lisp. I mean, obviously, Clojure is a descendant of that as well. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a great learning tool.
And why? Why Scheme? Why Lisp based? What makes those a better thing to learn first?
So it kind of flips the idea on its head a bit. The traditional idea of programming. Lisps in general teach you more about, I think, the essence of programming, really solving the problem. It gives you the ability to not only focus on the essence of the problem solution, but the ability to kind of mold your language to fit exactly what your problem needs are. We're all here because we want to solve problems, not write features. And to be able to solve a problem, you don't want the language to get in the way. Traditionally, Lisps will let you bend the language to your will and actually give you the flexibility to design what you want and then get out of the way for the rest.
So do you use Emacs or VI?
I'm an Emacs user. Since the age of 12, I've been an Emacs user.
Naturally, because there's a lot of Lisp involved in Emacs.
And I don't participate in the editor wars. I love VI. Actually, when I code in Ruby, I use VI.
That's a shame because Emacs is glorious.
I agree. I don't like the editor wars, though.
So in terms of the language wars, let's just bring this back. The thing I've noticed is that there really are no language wars. They all seem to be getting along.
Yeah. That is amazing, especially the JVM languages. It's a group of friends. We see each other at all the conferences, share ideas. Everybody's out to further technology, not themselves. And I think it's a great community to participate in. You'll see some language squabbles here and there, but at the language creator level, which Rich Hickey is the creator of Clojure, and the people closely working with the languages, it's really more of a friendship thing than it is a language war or battle.
But are there little spats that sort of brew up?
Not necessarily around the language itself.
Yeah.
There are definitely ideological differences, and I think that's where you'll see some heated debates. But they're good arguments. They're good discussions. And I think it's great when they're out in the open, and then people can see, oh yeah, this is why I believe this way. Instead of somebody saying, yeah, I believe this or I believe that, it's I believe this, and here's a really detailed explanation of why I believe that.
4 or 5 years ago, using something like JRuby, even if I'm not even sure if it's been around for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Things have just been moving so quickly. But using an alternative language on the JVM was kind of a risky thing to do in a corporate environment. Nowadays, you'd be weird not to. Why? Why has that happened so quickly?
So, as opposed to other languages that don't adopt a platform, take just regular MRI, CRuby, for instance. That was tough because operationally, there was a lot to be invested. If you wanted to support MRI in your environment, you had to know how to monitor it. Platforms like the CLR and the JVM give you, basically you get your investment back. You don't have to make those extra investments to monitor and to support operationally these new languages, right? At the end of the day, you're supporting the JVM or supporting the CLR, and these are really good traits of a language. When you adopt a platform, you also adopt all the billions and billions of dollars that were invested in the platform, and so I think there's a leg up. And once the larger companies realize, oh hey, I've got this thing that really gives me the power of the platform. I don't have to reinvest. My operations team can still support it, but it gives me a total leg up as far as productivity, simplicity, focus, power, the things that help me make money and solve problems. I think that's why the adoption curve has been different.
Have you worked with any companies that have adopted various languages and then found out a year later that they might have increased their exposure to a number of technologies too quickly? Is that a risk that people need to worry about? So,
I think it could be a risk. I think the overexposure is a risk when you don't have the right people to back it up. Mm-hmm. So I haven't seen that personally. I know it has. I've heard stories. I've read plenty of stories on the internet. Oh, we did this. We did it too fast. We're going back to X or Y. It didn't quite meet our needs. But I really think it comes down to the people and the dedication and passion of the people working around it. And absolutely, there's times when a language is the wrong choice or a technology is the wrong choice. But I think that when you've invested in your people, the rest of it is just it's all relative, I think.
Okay, I hate people who ask true or false questions. True or false? Java is the wrong choice for a lot of applications.
False.
False. Explain that answer.
So I think that, and I guess when you say Java, I'm thinking more of the platform than I am the language.
No, I'm talking about the language. So like, let's say struts or something like that.
Okay, then I would say false.
Okay. So justify choosing Java as a language.
At this point, I can't.
Okay.
There's way too many options. I think that there are some large companies out there that are afraid that scaling up, training, staffing on these projects would be difficult. But I really think that it's about investing in your people.
Okay.
And you can make a lot more money by investing in your people than you can by investing in doubling, tripling, quadrupling your team size of people who know the same old thing.
Okay, so if you're working at a company, you're having a hard time selling a language like Clojure, how do you make a case to people who might be skeptical, people who are convinced that Java is the right answer?
Forgiveness, not permission.
Okay,
do it.
Okay.
Just go do it. Show off the power. If you have to spend a weekend or your evening time, do it, right? A little bit here and there during the day, but show off how powerful it really is. You can't convince somebody in a argument with no tangible products. You need to show somebody I can solve a problem, and here's how long it took me, and here's what I got out of it. Showing somebody, hey, look, I took this 1,000-line code base we had and turned it into 10 lines or 50 lines of code, and by the way, I removed all these complexity that we didn't need. And
so some of the companies that you work with are only really convinced once they see it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think that's, you got to put your money where your mouth is and show them, hey, this is how this works. Because we can argue all day long, but until they're confident you can make money solving problems this way, I think it's just totally irrelevant.
All right. Well, that's some advice to people who might be stuck in companies that are very conservative and don't want to move.
Sure.
One last question. What's new in Clojure, and how do people start using it?
So there's a whole lot new in Clojure. Clojure 1.3 just released. So major language changes. It was almost a year in the making, actually a little more than a year in the making for Clojure 1.3, which is longer than anticipated, but just a lot to get in there. So the language has changed, kind of favoring performance. So the numeric system has changed. Some really high power math operations have been added. Just giant laundry list of changes, improvements to the language, improvements to the way you construct things in the language. Tons of new library support. There's a full logic programming library targeted towards the kind of the Prolog style logic programming that's coming along called Core Logic. It's amazing. Clojure script, Clojure on the JavaScript platform. So a whole new implementation of Clojure. It's actually built in Clojure and targets JavaScript as a platform. So
so if I want to get started, where do I go?
So if you go to Clojure.org, that's the main starting point. There are lots of materials out there. There's I think almost 6 books at this point published on Clojure. Nothing published on Clojure script yet. It came out just in July. So you'll see a couple things hit some of the newer books coming out. But other than that, it's really Clojure.org is your place to start.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming and joining us today.
Absolutely.